What is up, guys? This is Concrete Breakdowns coming at you with a fun one today. Remember to like and subscribe. Not subscribing just might cause a ripple effect that permanently affects the reputation of boxing. You never know. So let's proceed on the safe side and click that subscribe button.
What do you think is going to happen when he fights Logan Paul? How crazy is that?
Dude,
that
I
they're
love
doing that?
dude, I like Logan,
Logan's a big kid.
but
He's
it
big.
doesn't.
Yeah, it's happening, alright. YouTuber Logan Paul is fighting living boxing legend Floyd Mayweather on the 20th of February. I wasn't planning on making a video on this fight. I'm interested in fighting on all skill levels, but I'm not really familiar with Logan Paul, only on a very surface level. So I wasn't sure what to say about the guy. And the fight style of Floyd Mayweather has been broken down in every way imaginable by the best boxing analysts. I don't really see how I can add something new to all the work that is already out there. This fight is basically the Conor McGregor-Mayweather fight on steroids. The bad kind of steroids you get out of some Polish dude's garage. Conor was substantially physically bigger than Mayweather. Logan Paul is extremely physically bigger than Mayweather. Conor was inexperienced as a boxer. Logan is extremely inexperienced as a boxer. The Conor Mayweather fight had a circus-like grab all the money and run aspect to it, and the Logan Mayweather fight is pretty much only that aspect. I see how this matchup can be uninteresting to a lot of hardcore fight fans. But I did stumble on an interesting perspective on this fight the other day when I thought a little more about it. Let's first establish exactly what this fight is. This fight is a boxing exhibition. At the moment of making this video, the number of rounds and the length of the rounds has not yet been announced. But Logan noted in an interview with Brendan Schaub that he thinks the exhibition will be 6 rounds of 3 minutes. So we'll go off of that. Mayweather had an exhibition fight in December of 2018 with Japanese kickboxing star Tenshin Nasukawa. This fight was 3 3-minute rounds with 8-ounce gloves. The fight was full contact, and in it, the much bigger Mayweather definitely was willing to hurt Tenshin, finishing him with shots to the head. So just because this is an exhibition does not necessarily mean there will not be serious damage dealt. Mayweather might also not want the word out there that the YouTuber went the distance with him. So we should consider that Mayweather might actually be willing to finish Logan here. This fight is a profit generating event. Money Mayweather is the king of generating revenue and has been considered the richest athlete on the planet at many points in his career. It's sometimes hard to see where reality starts and the Money Mayweather character ends with Floyd. He makes a lot of money, he spends a lot of money, and there are always rumors floating around of debts and unpaid taxes around Mayweather. Mayweather is great at putting himself in situations where he's fighting with the lowest possible risk for the highest possible paydays. And whatever his actual financial situation is, we know for a fact he has at least made a lot of money in his career. And the Paul brothers are basically trolling the combat sports world for giant sums of money. And so far it's been working out great for them. So these two economic powerhouses together are going to make sure to get paid. It has been reported that Mayweather, who will forever be the A side of anything he does in boxing, will be getting the biggest share of the upfront money as well as the bigger cut of the pay-per-view. With the recent KO of younger Paul brother over Nate Robinson being so memeable and a giant hit on the internet, as well as boxing fans kind of hating this fight but secretly wanting Logan Paul to get his comeuppance, I see this fight pulling decent numbers from both sides of the fence. Whatever your take is, this thing is probably going to be a financial success. And lastly, this fight is a reason to hype up Logan Paul's chances in this match. You have probably already heard the arguments pro Logan Paul floating around. Mayweather is 43, out of his prime and retired. Mayweather is 68 kilograms at his heaviest. Logan Paul is over 90 kilograms. The height difference is insane. The reach difference is insane. It's David versus Goliath. Young versus old. And Logan Paul has all this money to put in his professional training camp. Not to mention he's a pretty darn good athlete to begin with. And he's been taking this boxing training very serious for years now. And while these things are definitely all true, you have heard these arguments for a reason. It's to create a slimmer of doubt in the minds of people who are already sure Mayweather will win. To get you a little more excited about this boxing match, make sure you order that pay-per-view. This kind of marketing is needed because you already know the truth. The truth of the fight is that Mayweather is one of the best boxers of all time, and he's fighting a guy who's had 2 boxing matches. There's one operating system for fighting that's pretty okay, versus a highly elite operating system. It's not like Mayweather has been forced to fight small fighters his entire life and is now suddenly surprise attacked by this giant. Mayweather has had a lifetime of sparring. Sure, some coaches will make an effort to try and match guys based on size, but it's a safe bet Mayweather has had many rounds of sparring against larger guys. Hundreds of rounds. And probably even dominated many of those rounds against the big guys. Against better boxers than Logan Paul also. And on top of that lifetime of experience, Mayweather is going into training camp with the knowledge he's going against a larger opponent. Specifically sparring and game planning for taking down larger opponents. This is not uncharted terrain at all for Mayweather. Floyd's physical decline, as well as Logan's physical advantages, are definitely being overstated to sell this fight. It's okay to enjoy this fight, but it's important to separate baseless hype from reality. So now that we've established what this fight entails, here's the perspective on this fight I think is worth digging into. You are Logan Paul. Yes, you are in the circus fight, yes, you're going to make a lot of money, yes, you are going to lose this fight. But it's still your reality that you have to fight Floyd Mayweather on the 20th of February, regardless of all that. What are you going to do to prepare to the best of your ability? What techniques and strategies are you going to focus on? I'd like to offer you my thoughts on what Logan Paul should do to do as well as possible in this fight, as well as have the best chances of going all rounds and making it to the end of the match. Let's first do a little tape study on the oldest of the Paul brothers. Logan Paul has had 2 boxing matches with his YouTube rival KSI. The first one being an exhibition with headgear and the second an actual full-fledged pro fight. Here's my take on the first KSI fight. In this fight, Logan has an extremely active jab in the first 2 rounds. 80% of Logan's shots were jabs. The jabs come from a low-hanging hand. It allows Logan to manage distance and put right-handed offense behind his jabs. Logan applies a stance with low hands. His right hand was up at the start of the fight. I guess you could say it was a more square version of a Philly shell. He's definitely not able to hide behind his shoulder though. Logan's right hand dropped low and low as the fight went on. Logan is mostly using footwork and distance management to evade shots. Logan's energy started to drop from round 3. He got less active and less coordinated. In the last round, when Logan's cardio started to fail him, he was unable to keep his distance management going. When the distance management failed him, it showed that fighting in the pocket and head movement is not his forte, as KSI started to hit him repeatedly. And now we move on to the second KSI fight. In the second fight, Logan fought similar to his first fight, and you can definitely see as a natural fight style. Low hands, jab heavy, reliance on distance management. He still mostly moves back from shots as his main line of defense. But one of the greatest improvements Logan's made in this fight is that he did not gas himself out and kept his active jab until the end of the fight. So this is basically where I see Logan Paul right now. Guy would jab the noses of average people walking the streets, but he's definitely not on the level of an actual professional boxer, let alone one of the better boxers of this generation. His game plan should revolve around survival and making the most of the abilities he does have. So it's basically going to be a combination of big man tactics, survival tactics, mixed with Logan's own boxing style. There's a ton of tape on Mayweather's fight style. Within the borders of Logan's skill set, he wants to take away the condition Mayweather needs to thrive. He cannot do this in totality, as for one, his own skill set is limited, and second, he's fighting a master of boxing. Within the rules of boxing, Mayweather has no glaring holes, just feels he is less excellent at. But Logan still needs to push Mayweather in a fight where he's the least comfortable. Allow me to share my thoughts on what I think will provide Logan with the best chances in this match. First up is standing still and jabbing. Logan Paul should not really move in any direction at all in this fight, which will very much go against his nature. Mayweather's best attributes as a fighter are his defense and ability to counter. Mayweather's best opportunities to seriously hurt Logan will be to land shots while Logan himself is generating the forward momentum. Logan's jab being one of his best weapons will pay dividends here, as it will allow him to put some pressure on Mayweather without opening himself too bad for counters. Every step Logan takes is energy spent on something he won't be able to do. which is outmaneuvering Floyd. Logan's best bet is keeping his weight underneath him. Logan should keep the threat of a wild right hand landing with him as a get out of jail free card at all times. His jab will allow him to have at least some form of offense while not getting out of position. So as long as he's standing still and jabbing, he can always at least use the threat of a big right hand and work into a clinch. As much as this fight is about pure entertainment, to have the best chance, Logan wants to beat this fight as boring as possible. Mayweather is not exactly this forward pressuring, marauding knockout puncher, not even in his own weight class. He won't be able to literally shove Logan backwards and force him to eat a knockout blow. By Logan anchoring his feet to the floor and not giving any ground, Logan either forces the activity of the fight down or forces Mayweather to deal with Logan's physicality. Both are to Logan's advantage. Second up is establishing proper clinch positions. In the KSI fights, Logan often used a single underhook as his main clinch position. He did not always use his size advantage over KSI properly. He should turn this around for the Mayweather match. Truly leaning on and bullying the much smaller Mayweather in the clinch will be very important. This is one of the few effective ways Logan has to drain Mayweather's energy. Clinch positions like these are very draining on the opponent's neck muscles. Logan should chase opportunities like these to really force his way down to get the most out of every single clinch. He really has to try and find that line where the referee will accuse him of holding and wrestling and try to stay right below that line. Every time when Floyd gets comfortable and into a flow, which will be a lot, Logan should assertively close the distance and force a clinch. This is a part of the game Logan should be actively training right now as we speak, working on clinch technique itself as well as the clinch entries. If Logan can punch and clutch effectively, he might find himself in a situation where he's actually pushing Mayweather's gas tank. Logan could blast the right hand on the guard of Mayweather and just step in and clinch, and lean as much as possible on Mayweather. Here's a little pie chart showing what I think Logan's energy expenditure should look like. Literally half of his energy should be reserved for clinching. Logan basically wants this fight to look as much as a wrestling match as possible within the authority of the referee. Who knows, if the ref is a little slow on the trigger, Logan just might find an opening for some shots in the clinch at times. Foul strategically. So let's talk about fouling. I don't want there to be any misunderstanding here. I am definitely not advocating for Logan to tamper with his gloves or kick Floyd in the cup or anything like that. That's just basically assaulting someone. But there's a difference between a rough fight where the lines of the rules get tested and an actual nasty foul like biting or eye gouging. There's a difference between what Jack Slack would call a cheeky nutter and an actual cocking your head back and headbutting someone. Head positioning is very important in the infight as well as in the clinch. Positioning your head in the right places with a little more urgency and aggression is still within the rules. Positioning your head in a way that will force a clash of heads is against the rules, but certainly in the gray area. When you apply a tactic like this, where you threaten an opponent with a clash of heads every time the distance is close, it's primarily the referee's job to do something about it. But if the ref doesn't catch on, or the penalty he gives are not stern enough, there's a point where it becomes the opponent's job to do something about it. There will be a point where Floyd's right to complain as a boxing athlete ends and his duty as a fighter to respond starts. If Logan wants to land that bomb that shakes the world, his best bet is probably committing big after a clash of heads. Some other tactics he could apply are rabbit punches. Conor McGregor landed a lot of shots to the area that would be considered the back of the head against Mayweather. As Mayweather was bobbing and weaving, Conor simply took the opportunity to tag Mayweather's skull. Logan also knocked down his opponent KSI after landing an uppercut from the collar tie. This shot was very egregious and he got penaltied for it. But I do think Logan might be able to create short little moments of success applying collar ties. It's all about strategically walking the line with the referee. Now, applying any of these tactics is definitely a double-edged sword. First of all, we don't know exactly what's written in the contract about fouling. Logan might just lose a ton of money for fouling or repeatedly holding. Secondly, it is an exhibition. The ref might just wave the entire match off if things get too rough. And lastly, there is a small chance Mayweather is willing to carry Logan Paul. Maybe he sees Logan Paul fight as easy money and doesn't really have any intention of seriously hurting the guy. That would definitely change after a couple of headbutts from Logan. So maybe it's in Logan's best interest to be a sportsman and keep things clean. But if he wants that elusive Mayweather knockout, he'll have to be willing to get his hands dirty. And last up is prioritize absorbing strikes over evading strikes. So we have established in Logan's KSI fights that his main line of defense is his feet. He controls the distance and moves straight back to avoid strikes. He will totally have to lose this habit and take on a high guard and turtle up in this match. It's not possible for Logan Paul to move away from Mayweather's shots for 6 rounds, or whatever the amount of rounds is going to be. He get tired somewhere in the first 2 rounds and get TKO'd by Mayweather if he applies that strategy. Logan Paul is the bigger fighter and he has the time to build his durability and conditioning in training camp. He needs to accept the fact he's going to take a hell of a beating and prepare for it accordingly. Most skills in fighting need years of work to build, but a well-conditioned body can be pretty much built in a single training camp, for the most part. Logan should also put in a lot of work in his defensive shell this training camp. Learn to take hits on his forearms and shoulders, accept the connection on his forehead over his chin. If Logan can progress defensively and increase his durability in training camp, as well as shell up intelligently during the fight, he has a far greater chance of survival. Don't get me wrong, Mayweather will be able to hurt Logan, but he's not exactly known as a devastating power puncher. The right defensive approach on top of the size gap can potentially buy Logan a lot of time. Logan really needs to wrap his mind around the concept of proper energy expenditure. Sustaining some damage but surviving throughout the fight is far better than evading a few exchanges early and gassing out. For example, an exchange where Logan is tying Mayweather up after taking a few shots is a far better exchange for Logan than biting on some feints and losing 1/4 of his gas tank by sprinting backwards. So to summarize, Logan's game plan in this fight should be: not moving, lots of jabs, heavy aggressive focus on the clinch, stretching the rules as God knows Logan needs every inch he can get, and ready himself for a hell of an ass whooping. So now one might ask me, hey, concrete breakdowns, would Logan Paul actually have a shot at winning if he implemented all these things correctly? And the answer is no. But it's a no with an asterisk. So first of all, we don't really know how well Logan can actually box. We can only make a general estimation. His 2 fights are against the same YouTuber, who we also don't really have a reference for. KSI might have a high level chin on him, and Logan could actually end up being a solid power puncher. Or maybe the distance management Logan showed in his fights only looked any good because KSI is horrible at closing the distance. Logan can potentially be a lot better or a lot worse than our general estimations of him. Plus, there's also the unknown of Logan's improvement in the time since we last seen him fight. He potentially has gotten exponentially better as a boxer. So if we give Logan the benefit of the doubt on all these unknowns and create the best version of him in our heads, one that was better than we thought in the first place, has improved a lot over the last year, and is going to implement a great game plan, I still don't see him winning this fight. I don't see him knocking out Mayweather, and I don't see his stamina holding up over the rounds. So there might be no actual boxing victory in the cards for Logan here, but maybe there's a moral victory, as well as certainly a financial victory. Logan is certainly getting paid, and if he somehow goes the distance with Mayweather and doesn't look horrible, this celebrity boxing thing is only going to blow up even bigger. Every shot he does will be strengthened by the "I went the distance with the GOAT" factor. So there's certainly a moral victory there. McGregor also ended up looking pretty good from a Mayweather fight in my opinion. On one hand, yeah, an older out of his prime Mayweather beat him easily. But at the same time, you saw these glimpses of high level boxing from Conor. Plus, one of the big things that really stood out to me in that fight was that if the rules were only slightly different, or if the ref was exchanged by like a backyard boxing ref, Conor would have destroyed this guy. And I do think a similar moral victory could be in the cards for Logan here. If Logan looks any good at all in this fight, his stock is going to rise a lot. So that's basically the tale of this fight. Mayweather and Logan are going to benefit financially. We'll have to see if anyone's reputation is getting ruined, but at the end of the day, this will probably be a net positive for both parties. And we as viewers might get a little fun freak fight and some entertainment out of it. This was Concrete Breakdowns. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching.